Good evening, folks. Welcome back to another Monday night live stream. Excuse me while I just pop my chat out again, because just as I was about to go live, it decided to close itself down. So there we go. We've got some chat now. I'll be able to see who we've got in this evening. Good evening. I hope you all, he says, just straightening everything out so I can read it. I hope you all had a fantastic weekend. I hope you're all having a lovely week so far. On your Monday, let me know what you've been up to. Let me know who we've got in the chat tonight. Always good to speak to both the regulars and any new folks as well that we have in this evening. So good evening, good morning, good afternoon to you one and all. Let's have a look and see who we've got tonight. VJ was in nice and sharp, saying that he's at a Parents' Day school this morning, so he's going to miss most of it, but don't have too much fun without me. We will try. We will try. Kaleo, good evening. Saying that you need an escape today. You've got a flooded basement. That does not sound good. I hope everything is okay. Type 40 TARDIS, good evening. Blizzards, good evening to you as well. Christian, hello mate. Thank you as always for coming and helping out. Paul Richard, good evening to you mate. We got Major Tom, good evening Ed. We got Colin Wakeland, good evening to you as well. Zingbo said he's got his painting desk. On his painting desk, I should say, this evening is a miniature that so stubbornly refuses to be finished. Why won't it end? I hope you're all seeing more progress with your projects tonight. Well, I'm not painting tonight, obviously, but yeah, I hope if you're painting in the background, let me know what you're painting. Let me know what projects you're working on. That's always good to know as well. Scott Latham, good evening to you as well, mate. Yoakum, good evening. Colin Mack, good evening to you as well. Mark Long, welcome to the chat this evening. Thank you very much for joining us. Wayne Hayward, good evening as well. Super Pumpkin Man said he's not painting today, but he's busy figuring out where to go for birthday dinner tonight. Happy birthday. I don't know if it's your birthday today, or if it's been your birthday, or it's about to be your birthday, but happy birthday. Red Rose Wargaming, good evening Anna. How was Vatten Attack at the weekend? Did you, I think I saw that you'd bought a few bits and pieces. Did you have a good time though? Ted Williams, good evening to you as well. Big Dave says he actually remembered this week. Hello, mate. Just press that little reminder. That's all you need to do. Super Pumpkin Man says good afternoon, everybody. Alex Berry, good evening, mate. How you doing? He said never played anything Star Wars, but interested in this Shatterpoint nonetheless. So yes, if you didn't see the thumbnail, you didn't see the title, I don't know what you're doing here if you didn't, but if you didn't, tonight we will be talking about Shatterpoint, Star Wars Shatterpoint by Atomic Mass Games, and asking the question, should you pre-order it? It's available to pre-order at the moment, and it's not due for release until the summer, so we'll be talking about what do we know about it, and should you pre-order it. So we'll be getting that as our main topic this evening. Oh, I'll just scroll down there as I looked away. RPD, good evening to you. RG says evening as well. 2 parts for the painting challenge are on the go. One is one of the 4 projects on the go. This will give it a nudge to get it primed and painted. Nice one. Yeah, Kaylee, I can imagine that it must be a bit of damage from the flooding there. I hope that it's all kind of repairable and recoverable and all that kind of stuff. Tony Howell, good evening to you, mate. How are you doing? We got Dan the Grey Knight, good evening. Deep Red's in as well, says greetings, old son. Hey, less of the old, mate, less of the old. AMC says listening while painting. I'm on the fence about this game, so very interested. Well, there's quite a few folks are kind of, let's just say there's some mixed feelings about this game, even though nobody really knows that much about it at the moment. There's some real mixed feelings about it, and that's kind of what we'll be digging into this evening as well. Meats and Taverns, still haven't painted anything this year after finally catching COVID after 3 years. You make it sound like you've been trying and not managed until now. I hope you're okay, buddy. Scott says managed to finish the magnetizing my Into the Dark terrain. Assembled the Crute and the breaches. Magnetizing it, mate. That was a job in itself, wasn't it? Well done. RG says the second part I'm hoping will dazzle you. It's cryptic. Hopefully Andy will let it in. When have I ever not let some painting stuff in? I just want to see folks painting stuff. Tony says he's chopping coffee stirrers to size tonight for floorboards. I hope it's for like miniature stuff, mate. Otherwise, it'll take ages to do the house in coffee stirrers. So, you know, you're better off just getting proper planks of wood for that. Lucy, good evening to you. Welcome to the chat this evening. Paul Ridgen says he's trying to get Crossbones and Sin painted for this month's challenge. Nice bit of Marvel stuff on the go there. Andy Smith, our Reed Petty says hello to you, man. How you doing? Let's have a little. He says he's doing hobbying. Tasty Brain Drain saying hello to everyone. RG says, reminder, the missus said your laptop's making funny noises again. The missus said your laptop. What, my laptop? I don't think it's my laptop, mate. Super Pumpkin Man says, it is today as well. 36 years ago. 36? I remember when I was 36. I found out this week that I was a year older than I thought I was. I'd convinced myself I was 46. And my wife says, no, you're 47. You're 48 this year. So yes, I kind of lost a year. So there we go. It's not much fun, to be fair. Ed says he's got the other half of his challenge arriving tomorrow. Very nice. Bobby Clark, nice to see you, my friend. He said he's just finished painting some Malifaux bases that he sculpted, adding some flowers and weeds to them now. Hope you're doing well, Andy, and everyone watching. I'm feeling pretty sprightly at the minute, mate. I don't mind saying, over the back end of like last year and the early part of this year, I was feeling proper under the weather, like health-wise. I was just like, I felt like I had sort of something that I just couldn't shrug. I couldn't shake it off. But I'm feeling pretty chipper at the minute, mate. So hopefully that's behind me. Spiderlord, good evening to you. Says he had Darkest Dungeon tournament today. So sorting a mountain of tokens. And yeah, everyone's saying happy birthday to Super Pumpkin Man as well. Awesome sauce, as they say. So, like I say, what's everybody been up to? What you been working on this week? What's been your projects? What have I been doing this week, or this last week, I should say? Lots of admin I've been doing this week, kind of chasing up a lot of like bits and pieces, emails, catching up on some of that kind of stuff, finishing off the bits and pieces in this room just to make sure everything was 100% done. I've been fitting flexible sort of plates, magnetic plates to my 3D printer, to my resin printer, so that I don't have to keep sort of scraping away at the plate every time. And then I had to re-level the bed, and then I realized that you can't just kind of set a new home level. There's like a little home flag that like zeros the count. So I had to 3D print a spacer to fit into there to then like drop the level of the flag. And then I realized once I'd printed that the screws that go through it are then not long enough to fit the flag back on with the spacer in as well. So then I had to try and find some screws the right size. So that was a bit of a pain in the backside, I'll be perfectly honest. It kind of took me a lot longer than it should have done, but it's all done now. So that's never a bad thing, is it, when that kind of project stuff's all done. Painting wise, have I been doing any painting? You know what? I did do a little bit of painting. I was painting some Conquest stuff, actually. I got some Conquest stuff sent to me. I must be going back nearly 3 years ago. And nobody played it at the time. It was one of those games that, like, I don't think I knew anybody else that had even picked any models up. Nobody was interested in it. Nobody wanted to kind of give it a try, and they kind of sat in a box. And since I had my demo game at my local club recently, and I enjoyed it, I decided just to kind of, I mean, it's only one unit, it's not like a full army or anything like that. So I just decided to kind of build them and start painting them just for a bit of relaxing, something to do. So I've been doing that this week as a bit of background hobby, which was quite nice, like I say, quite relaxing. Andy Smith says it's for us it's Middle Earth strategy battle or bolt action. Cathboard Blood Bowl. Nice one, mate. Barry Kleiber, howdy to you, mate. How are you doing, sir? Hope you're well. Jez Hunt, good evening, mate. Always welcome back every week. Big Dave says he's working on Heresy Night Lords. Lightning and decals are a pain in the arse. They are, mate. They are. Camo, good morning to you, mate. How are you doing? Spiderlord's doing a bit of Blackstone Fortress. He's about halfway through painting the adversaries. And Alex is still painting his spires and doing his battle pigeons, the Strix, which are such cool models. Yes, your spires are looking pretty special, mate. I must say they're looking awesome, and I know you've done it down a little bit. So, you know, I've just done a little bit of kind of slap chop painting on them and stuff, but they look awesome, mate. They look really, really good. Colin says he's still sticking to Kings of War. And Alex is saying he's also creating and painting some objectives for Daryl's tournament in February. He gave me a couple of bases as well, mate, actually, and I was going to make some objectives markers as well for him. So Yeah, I need to get on with that as well. I'd forgot about it until you mentioned that. I actually think the bases are probably still in my jacket pocket from the last time I was at the club. Ariel Sanchez, good evening, mate. He said he's going to give Hametsu a shot, but he'd be using his 10 Thunders mini from Malifaux. That would work really well, to be fair, mate. It was one of the things I was thinking, because terrain-wise, I could see that I could have some nice kind of sort of feudal Japanese terrain, which would look nice for Malifaux as well, and really kind of set the scene for a nice 10 Thunders board, and then I'd be able to use it in Hametsu as well. So I saw there were some more videos this week about Hametsu, kind of explaining a little bit more about the core mechanics of how the game works and stuff. And yeah, kind of got my juices flowing just a little bit more as well, mate. Jess says he's been painting goblins for Kings of War. And he's enjoying it as well. Actually played Slain last night. I'm glad you had a game. I had a game last night as well. Me and my wife did an exit game last night. We did the... Oh, I forget. It's like... Oh, is it like Murder on the Mississippi Steamer or something like that? It's like a Mississippi sort of steamer paddleboard type thing. And it's kind of like a whodunit type thing on there, which was pretty good. It wasn't a murder, actually. It's a somebody steals something. So I don't even know what the title's called. In fact, I'll be able to tell you, because I posted a thing to Twitter when I'd done it. That told me how I got on. We got 9 stars last night, which I think is the highest result we've had on one of those. It was called, there we go, Theft on the Mississippi. Yeah, I can highly recommend it. It was one of the good ones. Alex said it's due on Friday. Got to get a wriggle on. It's only Monday, mate. I'm sure I'll be able to manage something. Alex is saying the Hametsu looks very cool. Yeah, I'm a big fan of it, mate. I'm looking forward to being able to get my hands on the rules. I would love to have a physical book, a physical rule book, but the shipping from the US is a little bit sort of a little bit more than I want to pay, shall we say. But I still want to support the company, so I think I'm going to go for the digital version of it. Ed saying yesterday was a good day for gaming. Legion in the afternoon, then RuneQuest in the evening. RuneQuest, very nice, mate. Nice mix of stuff. Tizzy Brindrin saying he's got some good news last Tuesday, that his mom's leg's fully healed, so hopefully she'll be able to get around and won't need help. That'll be nice, mate. I mean, it's nice for her, obviously, but nice for you as well. It's nice to get a bit of good news. He said he won't be spending his weekends in New Orleans and be able to get back to painting on Sundays. That's it. The future looks rosy for you all, mate. I'm glad to hear that. Somlin, good evening. He said he hopes everyone's well. He's basing some minis for Rangers and Warcry, and then he'll start to build his new Ruins of Middle-earth. I feel like Middle-earth's had a little bit of a shot in the leg recently. I hear a lot more people seem to be a bit more interested in it since the was it the Osgiliath box came out. I think it seems like folks seem to be sort of a bit more interested. Lord of the Rings has never really been my thing. I've never really had a massive interest in Lord of the Rings, and so yeah, not really my bag, that stuff. Jess says the Black Site interview was cool. Thank you very much, mate. I do enjoy doing those kind of like sort of developer and sort of company interviews with different folks some folks who obviously like Ronnie from Mantic, the owner of Mantic Games, you know, he's obviously a bit more of a bigwig, shall we say, in terms of the gaming world, right the way through to kind of folks who are running companies where there's sort of like 1 or 2 people kind of doing them as well. So it's nice to kind of sort of speak to folks in gaming. It's nice to speak to different sort of games developers and rules writers. I always learn something. I always kind of sort of enjoy understanding what their like where their, what's the word I'm looking for, like where does their inspiration come from, what kind of, where's their focus when they're doing this kind of stuff. I just find them dead interesting. And I've got another one set up as well, possibly for this week. We haven't settled on a date yet, but yeah, I've got another really cool interview coming up soon as well, so I'm looking forward to that. One of the things that I was looking to go to Adepticon was to get to meet some of the folks who are only really US based, and it would be nice to kind of meet them face to face, put a name to a face kind of thing, and be able to have a chat about their games, the stuff that I don't always get to see very often, get a demo of Star Wars Shatterpoint as well. But the thing is, it costs so much money in the grand scheme of things to get over there, and hotels and food and travel and everything else. And as I showed when I did that interview with Doug from Black Site, Zoom is so good for being able to just kind of sit in front of a camera and be able to sort of chat to people. You don't need to kind of spend $1,000 to kind of to fly around the world to be able to do that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm going to try and sort of use that a bit more and get in touch with other companies. And like I say, I enjoy doing it. They don't always do the greatest when it comes to views and things, but sometimes it's cool just to do stuff I enjoy as well. Let's have a little look here. Jason said, I've only ever read the rules. It sounds fun. I think you're talking about Middle Earth stuff, aren't you? I think. Ed saying GW are clearing out their Middle Earth designs to maximize profit before the license ends later this year. It wouldn't surprise me, mate. I think they're also kind of clearing out, making space for the old world as well, I think. Jason says, don't they revoke your British citizenship if you don't like Lord of the Rings? I will happily change my citizenship. I'm not precious about what nationality you call me. We never used to have nationalities. If you go far enough back, we all just kind of like lived in the earth, or on the earth, I should say. Steve said, has anyone else been trying to buy less game stuff? After the last couple of years, my backlog's gotten out of hand. I've not intentionally tried to stop buying less, but I definitely don't get caught up in the hype for stuff. And I tend to just buy the stuff that really interests me, really. I don't feel the need that I used to years ago, where like the latest big release from GW comes out or something, or this is the new must-have game. I don't really feel that pull anymore now. So I'm quite fortunate in that respect. It doesn't mean I don't get excited about stuff. There are still plenty of games that I'm really looking forward to, and I will happily spend the money on them, but I generally I don't just buy for the sake of buying, where in the past I used to. Excuse me. Mutton Chops, hello there. Says, will you be attending Salute 50? And if so, what are you looking for? I probably won't be attending it, mate. I did a video a few years ago before the pandemic and stuff, saying that I wasn't going back to Salute. And the reason I wasn't going back was the fact that I didn't think that it offered anything. It wasn't really worth the journey and the expense of going there. In terms of there's nothing to see there that you haven't already seen, like with the internet and stuff like now, and all of the social media stuff, and everybody doing YouTube videos and blog posts and Facebook posts and podcasts and everything. Excuse me. You've kind of seen everything there is to see, like all the new stuff. There's no secret new stuff to get. I also found that the deals weren't that good. Like, it was cheaper to buy stuff online, even from some of the companies that were selling at Salute. It was cheaper on their website generally for some stuff. I also found that it was really difficult to get demo games of anything. A lot of companies had like one table, but weren't like sort of really going out of their way to give demos of games. It was kind of like just wandering around sort of some shops with a lot of stuff that was more expensive than if I'd bought it online, kind of thing. So what I found was that it got to a point where the money I spent to get the train, to pay for food, to kind of for the day out for the travel, I'd have been better off just staying at home and spending that money on miniatures and stuff, and then I would have saved money. So I feel like Salute doesn't have enough going for it now. There's nowhere to really sit and kind of sort of play any games or anything like that. There's like if you go to somewhere like UK Games Expo or you go to Aircon, there's big areas where you can just basically, you could buy something at the show and go and sit down and play the game. You don't really have that at Salute. And I just kind of feel like it's not for me. I'm sure there are a lot of people who love to go and see all of the demo tables and stuff like that, but for me there's not enough to justify the expense of going there. Just as saying, they're a great watch. It's good seeing the people behind the companies. It's always interesting to know more about these folks. Yeah, I would agree, mate. There's, like you said, there's a lot of like companies, like Alex has just mentioned Moonstone there. Like you kind of like you do forget that some of these companies, like it's not that long ago that the guy from Moonstone went full time doing that. Like it's like. And it's the same as what Doug was saying with the Blackside Studios. Like, it started with two guys in a garage, and then Doug was like their first hire. He was the first person working for the company. So it's interesting to find out, like, not everybody's a GW, not everybody's like 1,000 staff kind of thing. Sunderland says, by the way, last week I was at Nuremberg Toy Fair and surprised to find more brands in the wargaming industry there than in former years. Talked to the guys from Army Painter, GW and Archon Studios. There seems to be quite a few people that seem, Nuremberg Toy Fair seems to be growing from a miniatures point of view. I saw Mantic were out there as well. I do seem to see more and more miniature stuff that's growing that way. Christian sharing the link there for the Patreon as well. Thank you very much, mate. The support is really, really appreciated, both from the folks that already support me there and anyone that's considering doing it in the future as well. Jacob saying the Moonstone was fantastic. The Moonstone interview was fantastic, very inspiring. Thank you, mate. 28 Cruel says, I saw the Infinity and I have a huge backlog back to my painting. You saw the Infinity. I'm not sure what Infinity you saw, mate, but there you go. Sunderland says, I had a dummy of Shatterpoint in my hands at Asmodees, but it was only the empty box with the cover artwork. Nothing new there to take a look on. Yes. Alex says, I try to do one in, one out for new games, so I'm not just collecting starter sets I don't play. I've been there, mate, in the past. I was fortunate enough to have a job that kind of gave me plenty of spare cash, so the cost of buying new stuff wasn't really kind of like too big a consideration at the time. And I used to just waste money on stuff. Like, I've got a garage full of stuff, I've got a loft full of stuff that I'll never get round to, and I should really have a clear out and sell it off. Where these days I don't really have the same spare cash now, so I kind of am a bit more selective, and actually it's been quite nice. It's been nice to be able to like be more in control of it. Jess says, I'll go to Salute if I'm working that end of the country, but it's a bit of a pain in the hoop from up here. Yeah, it's a bit of a long journey from up in the northeast. But for me personally, it just doesn't have anything like particularly. So it hasn't changed. It hasn't grown. It hasn't had a refresh. It doesn't bring anything new the next year. They don't have any kind of like there's no, how can I even put it? Like there's almost no participation stuff. It reminds me of the really old-fashioned like local games shows where it's just a load of like it looks like a car boot sale with tables kind of thing, where it's just like loads of people just selling bits and pieces. And what I find is that Salute is great for meeting up with folks that you don't get to meet generally. But then for me, if I'm going to just meet up with folks, I'd almost rather arrange to meet up and play games with them and spend the day with them, rather than actually just like wandering around looking at a load of stuff that I could have bought cheaper online. Ed saying Salute probably has a year or two left, which is sad, really. It is sad, mate, actually, because I do feel like it's kind of, I think the COVID stuff obviously took the wind out of the sails a little bit. I think, hasn't it, I wouldn't say it's changed hands, but I think it's somebody else running it now, probably from the same wargaming group, but I think somebody else is running it now than used to. Andrew Fairbanks, good evening, mate. He says, how's the house tour video going? The house tour? Do you mean the tour of this room, mate, of here? It's kind of half done, mate, at the minute. What I did was I did kind of like the voiceover, recorded the script part of it, and now I need to do all the B-roll of kind of coming around the room and showing off all the bits I'm talking about. And I couldn't do that till I finished some of the stuff in the room. So yeah, I might get to it this week. If not, it'll be the week after. Jess is saying the Joe McCulloch one was really good, and the one with Annie from Bad Squiddo. John Hodgson from Handiwork would be good, but he's more RPGs. Yeah, I don't really know enough about RPGs, mate, if I'm perfectly honest, to like have a meaningful conversation. And it's not something I'm hugely passionate about, like the wider world of RPGs, if you like. Like, I enjoy sitting with a group of friends and doing an RPG, but I wouldn't say I was massively interested in RPGs. Matthew, is it Luthwaite? Says, it's nice to chat to the creators of smaller games at Salute and get their perspective and enthusiasm of games you might not have heard of. I get that, mate, yeah, but like I say, for me personally, that's something I get to do on a probably more frequent than your average kind of sort of person who goes to Salute. Like, I get to chat to these folks like through what I do with the YouTube channel and stuff. So even that side of it is kind of lost on me. Like, I love going to UK Games Expo because it feels really professional. Like, it feels like it's a place where I can go and I can spend 3 days there wandering around, playing demos, playing board games, having a bit of food, like chilling and have taken time to hang out and have dinner with people that I don't get a chance to see very often, or have a few beers. Like for me, that's a real event in the kind of like in my hobby calendar over the year, where I found Salute was just like, I spend 6 hours or 5 hours on a train to get to London. I wander around the XL Centre for a couple of hours, and then I feel like I've seen everything. Like it feels like a bit of a waste for me personally. Let's have a little look here. Win Hayward says, I like 2-player starter sets that appeal. I'm a big Star Wars fan, so I have to put my pre-order in with my local store, getting a great discount. Yeah, always good if you can get discounts as well, mate. Jess says, Jeff at Oakbound Studios is an interesting fella. I don't think I know Oakbound Studios or Jeff, mate, to be honest. Yeah, Andrew saying, yeah, it is a studio, yeah. Ed says, John Dodd does a great job at UK Games Expo. It's top class. I just, like, as I said before there, I find UK Games Expo is, like, there's enough there to keep me going for a few days, where I don't even feel that there's enough at Salute to keep me going for more than a few hours. Like, if there was more opportunities to demo games, like, be that board games as well, because I know it is mainly miniatures games, but you don't really get the chance to, like, demo stuff. So what I found the last time I was at Salute was there was a real, like, influx of people who had Kickstarters coming out, who wanted to show off their Kickstarter to make people aware of it, so that when it launched, people were like, oh, I've seen that before, kind of thing, I know what it is. But because they're kickstarting the project, they didn't really have much to show off. Like, there was a guy there, I think, and I see I'm going back maybe 2018, maybe 2019. I'm going back quite a few years now. Was the last time I was there. And he was doing like some like MDF terrain on a Kickstarter, and he had some like sort of pictures of what, like, all this stuff that he was kind of envisaging, but essentially what he had on his table was a square box. And he's like, oh, like, so, like, this is the first one I've done, but I'm going to make all of these. And it's like, well, yeah, loads of people make square boxes, kind of thing. Like, have you got anything to sell today? Like, have you got anything to... So, no, I've got nothing to sell, kind of thing. And it's like, all right, okay. And then you get people with, like, miniatures. Oh, we're coming up with this great game, and we're doing this, and we're sculpting this, and it's going to be this, and these are going to be the pledge levels. Can I have a demo of it? Oh, we haven't got anything with us to do a demo. And it's like... That's frustrating for me. So I did feel like it had moved away from, and I get it when it was smaller, and it's a lot of kind of historical stuff as well, but when it was smaller, it was probably a bit more, it would have felt like a local show kind of thing, and you can forgive those kind of local shows when they're grown. But when something gets to the size of Salute, I personally just have more expectations from it. I have, if I'm going to travel that far and pay to go there, it needs to have something to make me want to go. Jess is saying he's a hand sculptor and games writer. Did a game called The Woods, kind of dark age Celtic folklore skirmish game. I'm not familiar with it, mate, if I'm honest. No. Al Cluley, hello, mate. He said, I'm undecided as I'm skint. I want to see some gameplay and also see if the main game buddy is interested. I assume we're talking about Shatterpoint there, mate, to be fair. Which, to be honest, is probably not a bad time to kind of ease in and start talking about Shatterpoint. So, if I can, let me get to here. If I can go to there and go to here, and then I think what we'll do is, so folks, like, I've got a bit of a presentation. I sound like I'm kind of back at work now, kind of thing. I've sort of broken it down into some nice images and stuff, so you don't have to just look at my face. There's some other cool stuff to look at as well. But I won't be looking at the chat while I'm doing this. So if you have anything that you want to chat about specifically while we're doing this, if you want me to chat about it afterwards, please put @BlackJack Legacy in your chat, and then when it pings up on the screen, I'll be able to kind of scroll back through and see if there's any specific questions. But tonight, what I want to talk about is Star Wars Shatterpoint, and more importantly, should you pre-order it? It went up for pre-order on, I think it was the 30th of January, so about a week ago. However, we haven't really seen a huge amount about it yet. So what I wanted to talk about tonight was, what do we know about Star Wars Shatterpoint so far? A little bit about the kind of the surprise news about, shall we call it, Legion Kill Team appearing there last week. And then also, as I said, the main question really is, should you pre-order it? So let's take a look at that. So, Star Wars Shatterpoint. This is made by Atomic Mass Games. These are the company, if you're not familiar with them, the company that makes Marvel Crisis Protocol. And they kind of became the miniatures arm of the Asmodee kind of family. Asmodee is their parent company. Fantasy Flight Games is also part of that same kind of company. And what happened was Atomic Mass Games became the miniatures arm. So they now do all of Star Wars Legion, Star Wars Armada, Star Wars X-Wing. They also do Marvel Crisis Protocol. But Star Wars Shatterpoint is their new game that is coming out this summer. They've been working on it for a number of years, and we're starting to get some more information about it now. We know a little bit more about it. They've been drip feeding the information. We now know what's in the core box. We know what the price point is. As I said before, it's available to pre-order now as well. But we haven't really seen any gameplay yet. So I'm going to take you through what we know so far, understand where Star Wars Legion Special Operations, which is the Kill Team-esque thing that's just been announced, understand where that fits into the lineup, and then we're going to discuss about pre-ordering. So the core box, this is what it looks like. I'm sure you've seen this box many times, and it's quite some size bigger than the Star Wars Legion core boxes. And the Marvel Crisis Protocol core box. It seems a bit taller. So that might mean that it doesn't display on your Kallax shelf. It might be some consideration for some people. And as you can see from the artwork, it's very much inspired by the Clone Wars cartoons rather than the movies and the TV shows like Legion is. And we also know the scale of the miniatures that will be in this are slightly bigger than the Star Wars Legion miniatures. And this is one of the things that kind of, shall we say, caused a few ripples amongst the Star Wars Legion community as well when this was announced. Now here we can see the back of the box. This tells us the contents of what you're going to get in that core box. And to be honest, there is quite a lot of stuff in there. So you get 16 miniatures inside the box. Now, although there are a couple there you can see, which are the battle droids, there's a couple of bases which have 3 miniatures on each one. So technically you're getting 20 miniatures, but they're across 16 bases. There are 23 terrain pieces in there, and we'll take a look at the terrain in a second. There are 2 movement tools. There are 5 range tools. There's 14 order cards. Now, as we know, there are 16 bases, but there's only 14 order cards, which would suggest that because there are 2 bases which have battle droids and 2 bases which have clone troopers on, I assume it's just like sort of one card with the same stats for both of those. So very much the way that Warcry does it as well. If you've got multiple models with the same stats, you just use the one card. There are 12 stance cards. Now, we don't know much about what stance cards are at the moment. I'll tell you a little bit more about what we do know about stance later on, but we'll touch on them when we talk about the gameplay. There is 1 mission card, which I found was a bit strange. 1 mission card, but we'll know more eventually. There's 9 struggle cards. We don't know a huge amount about those. There are 14 dice, 1 struggle token. There are 16 momentum tokens, 1 struggle tracker. We'll come on to that in a bit. There's a punch board with all the tokens on, and there's also the core rulebook as well. So you can see on the back of the box here, if we just zoom in, you can see all of these things as listed out there, and it shows you some images which look very nice of the models that are available in the box, in the core set. It also tells you here as well what the recommended card sleeve sizes are. Now, I believe that there are a mix of different card sizes in here. Some are tarot card sized, and some are 6x4 cards as well. You can see that it's 2-player game there as well, and it also says that it should play in 90 to 120 minutes. Now this core, let me just zoom out of that. This core set will be sold as a different core set in multiple different, in specific languages. So for example, there is a core set in English, there's a core set in French, there's one for Polish, one for German, one for Spanish as well. However, the expansions that come out for this will be one box for the entire world, and it will have multiple versions of the cards inside. I'm trying to think if there's other games that have done that as well, but I can't remember off the top of my head, but I know other games have done it where they have multiple language versions. Essentially, it's easier to give you cards that you'll end up throwing away than it is to have different sort of boxes for all of the different regions around the world. AMG and Fantasy Flight Games have often kind of fallen foul of having sort of released boxes at the wrong times, like sort of, I know we've seen this with Atomic Mass games with Marvel Crisis Protocol, where one region will get an early release by mistake or something, and so that the model's available in like a few months before somewhere else. What this should do is it should stop all of that kind of stuff. So these are the models in a little bit more close up. Now I personally think they look fantastic, but then I'm a big fan of like the Clone Wars cartoons and Star Wars itself. So they might not be for everybody. I know some people are not overly keen on this kind of more cartoon image, but I really like them. So the minis are split into 4 pre-made squads that you get inside this box. There are 2 for the dark side, 2 for the light side. However, it's also been said that you can mix and match these models however you want to make your own squads. And that also means that you can mix and match kind of good and evil models together. So just because in the story they might be kind of bitter enemies, doesn't mean you can't craft some reason why they might want to work together and be on the same side. Now, there's a few reasons why I think this is a good idea. One, you can create your own stories in the Star Wars world if you always, those kind of what-if moments, which are always cool. I also think that what it means is that you can just buy the models that you like. So if you like this particular kind of, if like, let's say these were all sort of these were all expansions, if you like. If you like the Ventress model, but you want to sort of pair it up with some of those Mandalorians, you could absolutely do that and just buy the boxes that you like. Another reason I think it's good as well is what it means is every release that comes out is a potential purchase for you. It means that you're not necessarily waiting for something for your faction to come out, and it means you can just buy the stuff that you really want to see. Excuse me, I'll have a quick drink here. So the minis that you get, the minis that you get in this box, we have a Sarge Ventress, who is the if I can pop on my little laser pointer here for those that are not familiar with Star Wars stuff. A Sarge Ventress here at the back. We have Kalani, who's this robot, and then we have 2 of these B1 battle droid bases. And these models are both on 40mm bases, and we assume that these ones, the battle droids, are on 50mm bases. And as you can see, there's 3 models to each of those bases. You're also in this part of this kind of dark side, if you like, the evil side. You get Lord Maul, or Darth Maul as you might know him. We get Gar Saxon, who is the one here with the shield here, and then we get 2 of the Mandalorian super commandos as well. So the way the box is set up is that this is one squad here at the top, and this is a squad here at the bottom. However, you can mix and match. Next up for the rebel side, shall we say, we've got Ahsoka Tano, or we should say. Here, one of the Jedis. We've then got Captain Rex at the back here as well. And then we have 2 of the 501st Clone Troopers. Now, what you'll notice is each squad is made up of like 4 bases, shall we say, or 4 models. And it seems to have in the core set a bit of a leader who has a lightsaber. So both both Ventress here and Maul with their lightsabers. And then we've also got Ahsoka here, and we've also got Anakin Skywalker, and they seem to be kind of teamed up with a bit of a character. So for here, obviously we've got Captain Rex with Anakin Skywalker. We've got Bo-Katan Kryze, and again we've got a character here in we've got Kalani here, and we've also got Gar Saxon, and then they kind of like flanked by a couple of, shall we say, like standard trooper type things. So 2 of the 501st clone troopers, and then we've got 2 of the Clan Kryze Mandalorians here as well, with Bo-Katan, and the same here. A couple of Mandalorians here, and then a couple of bases of the droids. So it seems relatively kind of balanced for the core set, but of course we'll know more as more information becomes available on how you actually build up your sort of squads. Now you actually get this terrain inside the core box as well. So it says that it comes with 23 pieces of terrain. However, each of these are kind of separate bits. So the ladders will be 1 piece, for example. I'm sure this little crate on the top will be 1 piece. These crates might even be 3 pieces. I've got no idea. But what I would say is there is quite a lot of terrain. If you see the unboxing that AMG did, there's quite a lot of bits of plastic inside that box to make up this terrain. So it's quite a sizable sort of piece of terrain that you get with it. It's not like necessarily just a couple of little bits of kind of like line of sight blocking thing. What we do know is the game is also relies a lot upon sort of verticality and about sort of I suppose having the high ground, shall we say, from Star Wars reference. And I think it's important to have some terrain with some height actually in the box as well. But I was quite impressed with just how much you got in the box. Now on launch weekend, or on launch date we should say, there is actually some extra stuff available as well. There's a couple of terrain packs, and there's another terrain pack called High Ground, which looks very similar to this, but it is not exactly the same. It's essentially, I think it's the same kind of walkways, except this kind of big block at the front isn't in it, and instead there's a bit of a tower that's kind of in the picture at the back here. So it's similar, but it's not exactly the same. And we also know that the game plays on a 3 foot by 3 foot table, or a 3 foot by 3 foot plane surface. So you're going to need some terrain, but you're not necessarily going to need terrain for like a 6 by 4 table, shall we say. Next up, included in the box, is you also get 14 dice. We do know that these are the dice that you get in there. So there are 6d6 defense dice, and there are 8d8 attack dice. Now we know from, say, from Marvel Crisis Protocol, attack dice and defense dice are exactly the same. They're all d8s. So we know it's not going to work exactly the same way as Marvel Crisis Protocol does. But up until now, these are kind of like symbols that we haven't seen. We're not really necessarily going to know exactly what these are until we know a bit more. You also get 4 range rulers in here as well. So you can see these ones here. So the ones marked with 2, 3, 4, and 5 are range 2, range 3, range 4, and range 5. And these will be for kind of for measuring out shooting and things like that. Range 1 generally in these AMG games is the width of one of these, any one of these measurement tools. So that's generally with range 1, and then 2, 3, 4, and 5. You also get this 5th measuring tool as well, or a range tool it's called, and it's got these weird kind of angles to the ends, and this arrow kind of pointing up. So it's not easy to see what this is for at the moment. Now, because we know that the game kind of does rely upon elevation and height of terrain, it might be something to do with that, but at the moment we're just guessing about that. And the other thing to notice is it does come with 2 movement tokens, or movement tools I should say. There is kind of like a small one and a large one. We know from both Star Wars Legion and from Marvel Crisis Protocol, they normally use like a small, medium, and large, 3 different types of movement. This looks like it's only going to use 2 kinds of movement. So yeah, just kind of, I guess it just streamlines it a little bit more. So, onto the controversial topic of prices. Now, we know that in the US, it is going to retail, and this is a recommended retail price, for $164.99. In the UK, it's a little bit different, however. It's also going to retail for £164.99 at retail price. However, they have said that during the pre-order window, if you pre-order it, you can pre-order for $149.99. Now, what that's done is that's created some interesting prices from the kind of third-party retailers, because some people are selling it for $164.99, then discounting down a little bit from there, maybe 10%, maybe 20%. Other companies are selling for the $149.99 and discounting it down from there by maybe 10 or 20%. So that I've seen all sorts of prices for this, anywhere from about £110 was the cheapest I've seen, all the way up to selling it for list price $165. So if you do decide to pre-order this, or you do decide to buy this game later on, make sure you shop about for this. By all means, support your local friendly gaming store, but it might be you might be saving in the region of £50 to £55 just by shopping around and just by looking around, because not everywhere is kind of using the same sort of starting point, shall we say. It might be after pre-order window is finished, once the game launches, we might see everybody go back to $165 and discount from there. But yeah, if you're interested in pre-ordering it now, you might be able to get it for like I say, for as little as £110. I have seen that it is 290 Australian dollars. And I've also seen that it's available for 145 euros, but I couldn't tell if that was the recommended retail price or if that was a discounted price. It looks like 165 is generally the price across every region, whether it's in euros, whether it's in dollars, or whether it's in pounds. We do know that the game is probably going to launch on the 2nd of June 2023. Lots and lots of the different sort of third-party stores that have this up for pre-order have June the 2nd as that launch date. I can't imagine that they've all got it wrong, so there must be something in the information that they've got from Asmodee or from Atomic Mass Games that suggests that's when it's launching. So yeah, June the 2nd, so not actually that long to wait now. Now, Asmodee, as I mentioned before, AMG's parent company, they have a store program. So certain stores that sell their products are signed up to a kind of a partner program called Hobby Next. And if you pre-order from a store that is part of that Hobby Next program, then you will get this early release of this alternative Padawan Ahsoka Tano, her miniature and her card for free. Now, this isn't a limited edition. This isn't like kind of a sort of like only available for pre-orders. This mini will be part of a squad pack in the future. So this is a chance to get her early. However, if you don't get it from the pre-order, if your local store isn't part of that partner program, don't worry, you'll be able to buy this in the future. And I thought about, well, that's a bit of a shame. You're not getting it free. Some people are getting it free. Some people are not. That's a bit of a mess. But then I also thought it's going to be part of an expansion pack, which will come with other models as well. And if you're somebody that wants to kind of collect these kind of models, or you like something from that particular pack, even if you get this free, you're probably going to end up buying that pack again in the future with this model in. So maybe it's not the benefit that it was initially. They've not really said when that pack's going to be made available. The only thing they've said is that they've guaranteed that the pack with this model will be released within the first year from the game's launch. So we don't know when it'll happen, but it will happen at some point. Now, what it does show is we'll be seeing alternative versions of characters in Shatterpoint in much the same way as we see multiple versions of, say, Spider-Man in Marvel Crisis Protocol. They will have different sort of names. So I think, for example, the one that's in the core box is called Ahsoka Tano, no longer a Jedi, and this one is called Padawan Ahsoka Tano. So it'll be one of those things where you can't take the two of them in the same squad. They're like a named character, but you can like sort of you can take either one and they'll have slightly different rules. Now, also in that launch wave, this first wave of launch products, there's a few other things. You can buy the dice as a separate pack. You can buy the measurement tokens as a separate pack as well. But these are the ones I think you'd be more interested in. There's a couple of terrain packs, and as I said, this high ground terrain pack is very similar, but not the same as what comes in the core box. This big tower bit at the back, as I mentioned before, is what's different. And then there is this take cover terrain pack as well, which is a bit more kind of scatter terrain type stuff. Now, these are actually priced at $74.99, both in dollars, US dollars, and in British pounds as well. So not the cheapest of packs, but then again, they have some quite heavy discount as well online. Excuse me. The other thing that's available as well are these squad packs. So this one is called Twice the Pride, which has Count Dooku in it and Jango Fett. And then we also have the Hello There squad pack with General Kenobi and Clone Commander Cody and a couple of clone troopers as well. And again, you can mix and match these with what's in the core box. What we don't know, I suppose, at this point in time is how many sort of squads you will be running as a player. So you get 4 squads in the core box. Does that mean that you normally play with 2 squads each? Or does that mean that you only play with 1 squad, but you have some options? That hasn't really been made clear yet. But these squad packs are priced at $49.99, again, both in dollars and in pounds. But I've seen these for like £35 available in the UK as well for pre-order. So there are some kind of discounts available. Now, gameplay, Star Wars Shatterpoint gameplay. We don't know a huge amount about it at the minute. And again, this is another one of those sticking points that people are saying, I'm not pre-ordering this until I've seen some gameplay, until I know what the game's about. And I do understand that. I do get it. I think that's fair enough. It's been thin on the ground, but we saw some things in the unboxing video. And we've also had what AMG call a transmission, which is basically like a web page post with some further information in it too. Now, in the unboxing video, we saw this, and this is called the Struggle Tracker. And we know this is how you'll track victory points during the game. And Will Schick, who is the product developer, the head of product development, showed this off in the video. And essentially what he said was there are a number of black cubes that you can just kind of see in his hand here. And there is also one clear cube. And what will happen is, if I can just change over here to a pen or something, the black cubes, you will basically put them in these end rows. So starting at 8, down to 7, down to 6, which reduces the length of this track from 0. So obviously the one side's for one player, the other side's for the other player. And as you're placing these black cubes in this tracker, it makes it easier for you to get to the maximum amount available on your track. And what happens is the clear cube starts in the center, and as you score victory points, it moves to your side. As your opponent scores victory points, it moves back towards their side. So if you're familiar with games like Dreadball by Mantic or God Tier by Steamforged Games, they use that kind of tug-of-war push and pull system. And this is how Shatterpoint is going to work. Now, within God Tier, there's also points where the base kind of level that you can go to changes depending upon whether you're winning or losing. Because what that does is basically, if for example, let's say that something happens in this game and you block in these cubes, so the most you can score is 2 points because you're well in the lead, shall we say. What it means is your opponent only has to score 3 points to pull it back to their side. The most you can ever get is to 2. If you score any more points, it doesn't increase anymore. Whereas in they could score up to 6 points and pull it away from you, you would then have to score 7 points to drag it back. So it's quite possible that's exactly how this is going to work. Let me just erase those. It's quite possible that's how this is going to work from the way that Will Schick described it in the video. And I think this is going to be really interesting rather than just racking up kind of victory points. my experience from games that have this push-pull, tug-of-war mechanic is you never really feel out of the game, because when you start to score points, you're actually taking them away from your opponent as well. It's not just them racking points up and you're trying to catch up. You're actually pulling it back towards your side, which I think is a really, really interesting mechanic, and it can turn the game around. Now, the other thing that they talked about during their transmission was that they talked about the aim is to capture the pivotal conflicts between small iconic groups of characters within the greater battles that we often see on screen. So that's what they're trying to do with Shatterpoint. It's those small squads, those kind of like sort of intricate, the mini battles within the bigger battle, shall we say. And the game utilizes what they've called a unique and distinct system for how and when units attack. Now, we don't know what that is yet, but the fact that they've mentioned there's going to be something interesting about the order mechanic, shall we say, and how and when units kind of activate, it's going to be quite interesting. We know from things like Star Wars Legion, the way you kind of, you'll plan out your sort of your battle in advance, where you can kind of, there's almost that betting mechanic of who gets to go first and how many of your units will you definitely know will kind of activate at the right times. I wonder whether we're going to see something along those lines in this. Now, the struggle objective system gives a sense of building tension and payoff as the game progresses, is what they've said as well. And again, that's along that struggle tracker that we've just been talking about. They said they want to keep players engaged via changing circumstances, making Shatterpoint a game that's always posing the players with interesting questions. And from the moment a player starts building their strike team all the way through to the final struggle, players will need to weigh their options carefully and adjust their plans on the fly if they want to emerge victorious. Now, that might just be a bit of marketing spiel, but what I'm reading from this is they're trying to make it more interesting than just kind of, well, I got a victory point, so I've won, like I've got 10 victory points, I win the game kind of thing. It feels like there's that push and pull mechanic, the fact that it's not always over. You can go and kind of take the fight back kind of thing. They were talking about how best to execute a game centered on the narrative of fighting in Star Wars, because obviously things like fighting with lightsabers is not the same as kind of shooting laser guns across a battlefield. And they decided that combat shouldn't just be about dealing damage, but about using your abilities to claim objectives under fire, drive back your opponent, and create openings for the rest of your strike team, all while using the environment to your advantage. Now, that sounds quite interesting. They're going to have, it sounds like there could be some kind of dual mechanic thing going on here, and we'll come back to that in a second. It says they showcase the themes of hope and struggle with combat trees, which is interesting, board manipulation and of attacks and abilities, and a struggle mechanic that charts the player's course to victory. All these elements capture the feeling of fighting a life or death battle with your back to the wall. They say mechanically, characters in Shatterpoint are expressed through their abilities and their combat stances. Now, if you remember back when we talked about what was in the core box, we talked about stance cards. And I do wonder whether these stance cards, combined with what they said about kind of sort of lightsaber battles, rather than just dealing damage. Somebody mentioned to me about, I wonder if they do this a little bit like they do in Moonstone, with that almost rock, paper, scissors, like we're going to battle together and I'm going to do a strike kind of thing, like a forward strike, and I'm going to do a defensive stance. I do wonder if there's something in there that's a little bit like that. I'm kind of spitballing that. I'm not saying that's what's in there, but it'll be interesting to see exactly how that works. And they're saying that basically the combat stances bring out the narrative feel of the characters. So Lord Maul's combat stance showcases an extremely aggressive and dangerous character who's focused on the destruction of his enemies above all else, while Obi-Wan's combat tree is less about raw damage and more about manipulating positioning and exposing his opponent, wearing them down and setting them up to suddenly find themselves out of position to claim a critical objective. And they're saying it's an innovative system that hasn't really been done before in tabletop gaming, and that's always exciting. So I'm looking forward to find out more about it. It's like we're starting to get a drip feed of information. We're expecting more information about the mechanics in March, and also the first demos of this game will be at Adepticon in March as well. So no doubt we'll start to hear more then as well. So Shatterpoint Kill Team, or Special Operations as it's also called, was announced last week, and this is basically like an expansion or another gameplay version for Star Wars Legion. It's basically gone into public beta testing, and you can download this now for free from the AMG website. And yeah, as I said before, this is called Star Wars Legion Special Operations. Now, I don't know a massive amount about this. I've not had a chance to read through the rules in fully. However, I do know that the stats have changed. So basically, you can use your Legion minis. The rules are essentially still Star Wars Legion, but they've changed some of the stats to take into account that you're not using big sort of squads anymore now. Now, it feels that like both in the... Excuse me. It feels that both in the timing of this announcement and the wording of the announcement that Legion players were maybe feeling a little bit pushed out with all of the Shatterpoint attention. They weren't happy about the fact that the scale had changed from Legion miniatures up to the new scale for Shatterpoint miniatures, and there was a lot of sort of talk about why would you not just make Shatterpoint a version of Legion. We can use Legion miniatures. We've already bought Legion miniatures. Why would you not just make Shatterpoint a version of Legion kind of thing? And then the announcement basically said, if I can just kind of paraphrase some of the stuff here, and I'll just take some kind of like some lines from it. They mentioned that basically that this is going to be a new gameplay variant of Legion. Legion will always be the core kind of variant, but this is kind of like an alternative play mode, if you like, multiple ways to engage with your favorite game is the way they worded it. And it says that basically the director of product development, Will Schick, and the development manager, Will Pagani, developed Legion's and developed by Legion's dedicated lead developer Andrew Dersom. Star Wars Legion Special Operations allow players to play out intense firefight missions between small squads of elite troopers, which sounds also like what they were saying about Shatterpoint. And it said it's been on their big dream board for a while for Legion. However, recent chatter among community showed us there is a very strong desire for a way to experience tactical and up-close and personal Star Wars Legion battle experience focused on individual trooper miniatures. So it feels like they're kind of throwing a bit of a bone to the Legion crowd. It feels like they're trying to kind of sort of show Legion fans and Legion players that they're not forgotten about. But it does kind of conflict a little bit when it feels that both games are kind of aimed at that small squad type stuff. What I would say is, from the aesthetic, Legion is very much kind of movies and TV. Shatterpoint is very much kind of cartoons and comic book type things. So the million-dollar question is, should you pre-order? A lot of people are saying they don't want to pre-order until they've seen some gameplay, and I completely understand that. Some people think it's too expensive. In that case, don't pre-order. Some people say that they don't like the minis because they don't like the fact they're a different scale. They don't like the fact that they're not Legion. In that case, don't pre-order. Some people think it's a big exercise in FOMO and stuff like that, and the whole pre-order thing is just to hype people up and this fear of missing out. The fact that this is just a normal release, it's a normal launch, and that basically the pre-order is just to make sure that you kind of put your money down for it, and when it releases, yes, it might sell well and you might have to wait a little bit to get another one, but there's more coming. This is a game that is going to be sold for years to come, in the same way kind of Marvel Crisis Protocol is. So I wouldn't say there's a FOMO attached to it, because you're not missing out. But if it's not for you, don't pre-order it. Just wait until it comes out and then you can pick it up in the shop. Just wait for that kind of thing. I've actually given it some thought, because I haven't pre-ordered it yet. I gave it some thought. When the game was announced, I thought this sounds right up my street. It's exactly the kind of thing I want. I wanted to wait to hear about how much the prices were, which we now know. I wanted to know what you got in the core box. and I wanted to know enough about the gameplay that I could make kind of an informed decision. Now, I've decided to pre-order this, and I'm going to give you 5 reasons why I've decided to pre-order it. So the first one is to get one at launch. So I want to be able to kind of open it up on launch day or launch week or whenever it is, or right at the start, and I want to be able to get into it, and I want to start building minis, and I want to start painting them, and I want to read through the rules, and I want to be able to play it. Now, yes, I could just wait and just pick it up on the day, but if I pre-order it and I pay for it, I know it's just it'll get delivered. I'll be on the list of people to have one sent out kind of thing. I won't have to wait to kind of go and hope my local store's got one in, or have to wait a few weeks for restocks or anything like that. So one reason is just to make sure that when it launches, I get one. The second reason is I can cancel it. It's a pre-order. I haven't actually bought anything. I haven't committed I haven't sold my soul to get it kind of thing. If you go to any store and you give them the money as a pre-order, you can cancel it. They haven't fulfilled the product yet. They haven't got the stock to give you. You can ask to cancel your pre-order and you can have your money back. So if the gameplay stuff comes out in March and I decide it's really not for me, it's so bad that it's nothing like I expected it to be, I can just cancel it. Just as simple as that. And ask for my money back. The third one is these are Star Wars minis that I like. I'm not a huge fan of the Legion minis. Excuse me. Oh, such a dry throat tonight. I'm not a huge fan of the Legion minis. I find them a little bit kind of sort of, I don't know whether it's maybe just the older ones, but I find them a little bit chunky, like the scale's a bit funny. Sometimes they feel a little bit kind of like big heads and big hands kind of thing. They're not all like that, but like there's certain models that I've seen and certain models that I have, because I did buy the core sets. I'm not a massive fan of some of the models. I like the fact that Shatterpoint has a bit of a bigger scale to them. I like the Marvel miniatures. I like the fact that they have a bit of a bigger scale. I enjoy painting them. I love the fact that it's not squads, so I can just kind of paint individual minis and just enjoy it. So I quite like the difference in these kind of sculpts. So I like these minis. The fourth one is because of Marvel Crisis Protocol. I'm a big fan of Marvel Crisis Protocol. I love the minis. I love the rules. I don't mind the release schedule. Like I don't think it's kind of too sort of in your face. It's definitely a game where you can kind of pick and choose the models that you want, and you buy them when you want to buy them kind of thing. And I like the fact you can kind of mix and match the models that you've bought to make up some interesting kind of squads. And a lot of what I've seen from Star Wars Shatterpoint is very much the same with this as well. I feel that Atomic Mass Games have done a very good job of Marvel Crisis Protocol. I think when they've worked on a rule set from absolute scratch to release, they've done a good job. I wouldn't necessarily include X-Wing and Legion and Armada because they kind of inherited them from Fantasy Flight Games. But I feel that AMG have given me enough confidence from what they've done with Marvel Crisis Protocol that I think they're going to produce a game that is in line with the kind of stuff that I like. So I don't feel like it's a massive risk. And again, as I said before, if I see something between now and June that I don't like, I can cancel my pre-order. And the last one is I'm excited for it. Like, it's nice to get excited for something. It's nice to see something that you really do feel that, like, you know, I can look forward to building and painting these. I'm looking forward to playing some Star Wars, like little kind of sort of 3 foot by 3 foot games. I'm looking forward to putting some sort of Star Wars terrain on a board. And I'm excited for it. Now, if it's not for you, it's not for you. But there's a Scottish saying about don't piss on the thistle, which basically means just because somebody else is excited about it doesn't mean that you have to kind of like sort of pour sour grapes on it kind of thing. Is that even a thing, pour sour grapes? You don't have to rain on their parade kind of thing just because you don't like it. Like let the people that are excited about it, let them be excited. You don't have to complain about the fact that you think it's too expensive. You don't have to complain about the fact that you haven't seen any gameplay yet. Like, Everybody has a choice. And if somebody's excited for it, let them be excited for it. And I'm excited for this. So I'm going to take a chance. I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. I'm going to pre-order this. And then when it comes out, we'll know. Because I'll have cancelled it if there's something I don't like about it. But when it arrives, I'm looking forward to building and painting it and playing some games. So, folks, let's have a look. Let's get back into the chat and see what you've all been saying about it. Right, I'll flick back over to see if there was any major comments. I think there was one there I just saw. Ed saying one of the reasons I've pre-ordered is I can spread my pre-orders over several months, so I don't have to break the bank if I want to go all in. Yeah, I mean, I saw that today as well. I think with the discounts that were available online, I think I could get the 2 expansion sets plus the core set, and delivery included for like £185, which is a lot of money. Don't get me wrong; it's not a drop in the ocean, but for me, I feel like you're getting enough in the box to justify spending that amount of money, or enough in the boxes, I should say. It's like I completely lost my train of thought there. Yes, but it is possible to spread that out over multiple months. There's a lot of companies do things like Klarna and stuff like that, which give you interest-free payments, like you can pay over 3 months or whatever. So there are people who do that if you want to do it by pre-order. But yeah, like I say, like if you can't afford it, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but if you've decided it's too expensive, it's not for you, and it's not for you. Like, it doesn't really matter how good the gameplay is if you can't afford it. It's like anything, isn't it? It's the same kind of thing when it comes to Star Wars, it comes to Warhammer stuff and that. There are people who think it's too expensive and just won't pay the money for it. I completely get that. Let's have a little look at some of the chat that was coming in here as we were chatting about it. And I'll skim over some of these stuff. And we've also got some new folks in the chat tonight as well, so I'll say hello to those. Jez says, breaks out the whiteboard. Cheese Me says, never ever pre-order, period, especially with this little info. The thing is, I don't see, this is, somebody else mentioned about this today as well, and a pre-order is just like, I want to buy that, I'm just giving you my money up front to make sure I get one. That's all a pre-order really is. It's not a Kickstarter. I'm not pledging this money with no real kind of certainty that I'm going to get something. I'm handing my money over, but I can have it back if I change my mind before the product comes. You can even return it, I think, within 7 days if it's been kind of unopened. So if you kind of forget about it and you change your mind, you can always kind of send it back because of consumer laws and things like that. Like, for me, it's not a massive risk, because if between now and launch I find something out that I don't like, and I just ask for my money back. So it's not, I don't feel like it's a gamble. I don't feel like it's a risk. All I'm doing is basically paying for it now so I can kind of make sure I get it. I mean, every launch from Games Workshop is a pre-order. You pay for it 1 week and it comes the next. Like, that's no different. You can call it what you want, but Games Workshop have pre-orders every week. Coffee and Pistachios says, good evening. Hello there. Hello, Sarah Kiss as well. Nice to see you in. Spiderlord says, need to see gameplay, but also want Battle of Yavin and Plus era. I'm sure it'll come in time. Yeah, I'm sure it'll come in time as well. Eddie said, I'm absolutely not pre-ordering without gameplay. Now, I get that. But the amount of people that buy a game purely for the miniatures where the gameplay is irrelevant, I'm surprised everybody's kind of pinning themselves on the gameplay on this one. Like, the amount of people that buy Warhammer stuff ignoring the gameplay, without even worrying about the gameplay. I just, if the gameplay is a real kind of, if it's a real stumbling block for you, if it's just about the game and it's only about the game, by all means wait until March, see the gameplay and make a decision for yourself. You'll still have 3 months to pre-order it, kind of thing. Like, you know, like it's not like it's kind of like you have to do it now. It's not like this fear of missing out type thing. You've got 6 months to pre-order it, or 5 months now to pre-order it. So you can wait, yeah. Cheese Me says still no Dutch version of these kind of games though. I assume it's to do with kind of the size of the market, I assume. Jez says watch eBay fill with cards in non-English language. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me actually with that kind of stuff, but I guess that's where the 3D printing of the miniatures and stuff comes in, doesn't it? Coffee and Pistachio says really nice paint job on those two. Does it say who painted them? It didn't on the information that I have, but it might do on the I think they normally do on the Atomic Mass Games website. It normally tells you who the painter is. 10 Sketch says everyone but AMG this game isn't Star Wars Crisis Protocol, but everything I've heard so far makes me think it definitely is. AMG have said that this is not Star Wars Crisis Protocol. AMG have said it's not a reskin of the game. It's very different. But I would imagine, I mean, there'll be some stuff they've learned from Marvel Crisis Protocol, but they've actually come out and said themselves it is not Marvel Crisis Protocol with a Star Wars skin. It is a new game. It's got different mechanics. It's a different game. Jezza says nice minis, hope the gameplay is fun. If so, it'll sell like hotcakes. Yeah, I think this will be a good seller. I think folks like Star Wars generally. You know, it's a big license, isn't it, at the end of the day? I think they're also trying to appeal to a different market as well. Maybe the market that doesn't buy in or doesn't buy into miniatures games yet, which is going to be interesting. Cheese Me says I hope AMG knows how to do logistics and promotion for this game. They do suck at promoting MCP. I would disagree. I think they do a good job at Marvel Crisis Protocol. I think it just depends where your eyes are. And I mean that because they do a lot of stuff on Twitch. They do a lot of stuff through their own Discords. They do a lot of stuff through their website. So they, when they announce a new model, they do the kind of like the page to player type stuff, where they talk about about the comic book character or the movie character, talk about how it plays on the tabletop in comparison. They show off lots of images. They generally show the cards. I think they're better than a lot of other miniatures companies in actually sort of the build up to a launch. What I would say is that their shipping or the delivery is a little bit all over in terms of they sometimes give a date and it's released in Poland 2 months earlier or something because somehow the wrong stuff got shipped out or something like that. That's one of the reasons why they're doing this multi-language box, is to try and control that kind of stuff. So I wouldn't say AMG have been awful with the Crisis Protocol releases, but I know historically the Star Wars Legion stuff when it was with Fantasy Flight Games wasn't great. But that might be to do with the factories that make the miniatures. It might be to do with the distribution in the background. It might have been different between those games. I guess we should start to see all of that stuff kind of like lined up a bit more now. Greg Cherry says, I think AMG does a great job. Their streams show they actually hobby and play games, which is who I want to buy my games from. Yeah, I would agree, yeah. Cheese Me saying, how much compared to Kill Team and Warcry though? Well, that depends. If you buy a Kill Team starter box, they're about £125, £130, something like that, and you'll get them discounted maybe with, let's say, 20% off in the UK. So you're getting down to about £100, and you can buy this Star Wars Shatterpoint box for £110. There's places online sell them for £110. So there's about £10 different between them. You can play with everything from a Kill Team box for 2 people. You can play with everything from a Shatterpoint box for 2 people. So I don't think they're massively out of line in terms of, like, in comparison. Like a squad is going to be, it says £45, but they're going to be they're essentially £35 or £36 online. You pay roughly about £30 to £35 for a Kill Team squad in a box. So I wouldn't say they're massively different. I wouldn't say it is. Andrew's saying $132 on sale and $165 MRP makes me a little less interested. I still think I don't think it's a bad price for what you get in the box. You get quite a lot in terms of terrain and stuff, which is something to always take into consideration. I mean, it might not be a value to you personally, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't mean it's not value for what you get in the box, kind of thing. It just might have stuff in that you're not interested in. Cheese Me says range and movement markers look comparable to Marvel. They do, other than the fact that there's one less size. I mean, yeah. Ouch, full game though, he says. Yeah, exactly, yeah. Cheese Me says, that's just me. I might simply not be in the circles that get the superhero Marvel marketing. Yeah, I think it might be just that, mate. Like, as I say, it depends on where you're looking. Like, if you're looking on YouTube, they don't do a lot of stuff on YouTube. But that doesn't mean that they're not doing painting streams on Twitch. They're not doing kind of other stuff elsewhere. Spiderlord saying the exchange is a killer. I know how the US feel buying GW now. Yeah, that has been mentioned. Yeah, Greg says Star Wars fans have proven to rival GW fans in their rant posts. I think what makes it worse is a lot of Star Wars fans who play miniatures games are ex-GW fans as well. Cheese Me saying, but you can't use your Legion minis with this game. It's a different game, mate. Like, if you really wanted to, you could. There's nothing stopping you. Nobody, like the Star Wars police, they're not coming round and stopping you if you want to use Legion minis with this game. But they're different games. Like, it's like saying I can't use my Games Workshop minis. I can't use my Space Marines in Age of Sigmar. Like, and I know they're both Star Wars technically, but they're just different games. They don't have to be compatible. Like, that's how companies make money. Like, if they just wanted to sell the rules and let you use Legion minis, this wouldn't have the hype. It wouldn't have the marketing. It wouldn't have the information. It would be like, well, it would end up being like, exactly like what this special operations thing is, like a PDF on a website, almost like limping in, almost being forgotten about. Super Pokemon said I only really plan on getting Yoda and General Grievous, a few other Jedi and some clone troopers for collecting rather than playing. Yeah, nothing wrong with that. You buy the ones you want. 10 sketches. I don't think this will be a Legion killer. What will be a Legion killer is if AMG focuses attention on Shatterpoint and ignores the other games. I don't think it's meant to be a Legion killer. Like, they're aimed at different people. Some people who play Legion like to play bigger scale games. In the same way, Kill Team isn't a 40k killer because they're different players generally. There will be some crossover, but generally, like, the people that play Kill Team very rarely also play like lots of 40k. Do you know what I mean? Greg saying, yeah, terrain's interchangeable. It's interchangeable between any games, really, mate. I mean, scale when it comes to terrain is really subjective, to be honest. Spiderlord saying he has everything from Imperial Assault. It's why I didn't buy into Legion. I get not buying the same miniatures like 3 times. But for me, I haven't bought the Legion miniatures. So Legion didn't interest me. I didn't want to play a full army scale game where I have to paint loads of white stormtroopers or loads of brown rebels, for example. Shatterpoint is exactly the kind of thing that fits my bill. So I'm excited about it because I don't have any of the hang-ups from the Legion thing. Like, not every game has to be for everybody. Let's have a little look. Cheese Me saying the Kill Team mode for Legion sounds weird, almost like an afterthought. I mean, I'm sure that they haven't just kind of pulled it out of thin air. They must have been working on it in the background, but it does feel like it's to kind of to calm the storm a little bit, shall we say. Robin Mankiller, good evening. Nice to see you in, buddy. Robin saying, I love Star Wars and I think it'll have a large player base, thus will be one of the first Star Wars games I could get onto at release. There's something about buying in at release as well, where you kind of, you're on an even sort of footing with everybody else. You're all learning the game at the same time. You all have the same stuff kind of thing. There is something nice about that. There's also something nice about that pre-order window, in that it allows you to kind of build that local community, like find the other people that have pre-ordered it, like oh, I've pre-ordered it, I'm looking to play games, or I'm building a table kind of thing. And you start to find those local players that are kind of like, are all on that, like, all on that bus together, if you like. They're all on that journey together. Let's have a little look. Jan Vigo says, never pre-order ever. Hi, by the way. It depends, mate. Like, I'm not against pre-ordering. It depends what it is. Like, do I want to pre-order something that I'm never going to see for 2 or 3 years, because that's just called Kickstarter, and that's a pre-order that you're not even guaranteed you're going to get your thing. But plenty of people back Kickstarters all the time. So it's like, it depends upon your viewpoint. Like I said, Games Workshop, every time a new product goes up on a Saturday on Games Workshop's website, it's a pre-order. It might only be for a week, or it might be for 2 weeks, but it's still a pre-order. Like, you're still ordering something in advance. Like, if you order a takeaway, you've pre-ordered it. You've paid for the takeaway, but it hasn't arrived yet. Like, it depends upon your viewpoint, really. Let's have a little look down here. Yeah, Cheese Me saying about the Moonstone and the card mechanic familiar is kind of cool. It's going to be interesting to see what they do. I've got no idea if that's exactly what they're going to do, but the whole stance card thing, and the way they're talking about the activation of, like, it's not obvious who's necessarily going to go first or whatever, that's going to be quite interesting. Let's have a little look down here. Scale of the models is about 40mm, I think is the what they've been described as, about 38-40mm high. Random tasking, so we'll have the same issues as Conquest. These games don't have any issues. Like, they only have an issue if you decide, I'm buying this not for what it's designed for, I'm buying it for something else. In which case, just buy something else. Like, the Marvel minis are designed for Marvel, therefore, like, use them for the Marvel game. If you want to collect them, collect them. Like, if you want to use them in another game, another superhero game, use them in another superhero game. Like, the terrain isn't massively out of scale. Like, if you, like, the terrain that I've got for Marvel, I could quite happily use for Walking Dead without any problems. Like, it's not 6mm versus 40mm. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're talking about millimeters here, and we're also talking about models at different heights. Like, the height of a female character, a young female character, versus the height of, like, a robot or something. Like, even within the game, there's scale, if you like. It's all within scale to each other, but there's different heights. So, like, you know, that's to take into account as well. I find that kind of stuff is like, it's like sometimes it's like looking for the negatives to almost justify why something is wrong. Like, it's much easier to just say, it's not for me, I'm not interested, like, kind of thing. Or even better, not even worry about it. Don't let it get onto your shoulders, kind of thing. Let's have a look. There were always two, a master and an apprentice. Let's have a little look. Cheesy says, the thing with Star Wars and MCP is that once I've seen the famous characters, I'm done. I don't need all the unknown heroes in the universe. So this is the point, right? To you, they are unknown heroes. To other people, they are the characters that they've been reading about in their comic books. They're the ones that they grew up reading and couldn't wait for them to come to the games. They're the ones that they read about in the extended universe stories. They're the characters that are maybe little known to other people. Like, I feel the same way about 40k. I don't know who the characters are. I don't know the background story. Like, I don't find the background accessible, where the other side of it, from a Star Wars perspective, is I can go and watch the movies, I can watch the cartoons, I can pick up the comic books, I can pick up the extended universe books and read them. Like, it's all about viewpoints, and it's about, like, some people like some things and some people like other things, and just because it's not your thing doesn't mean that it's wrong, kind of thing. So when you're saying there, like, that basically, like, you know, once you've seen the famous characters you've done, I get that. That's absolutely fine. Maybe it's not for you. That's the bit. Let's have a little look. Where are we up to here? Just flying past me now, this bit. I'll just have to dive in somewhere. Carrie, good evening. Says, well, hello there. Are you going to be doing painting tutorials? I'm not sure, mate. I'm not sure. That's kind of 6 months away, isn't it? Like, so I might do. It depends. It's one of those things where once I get it, I just want to dive in and start painting it. So I haven't really got the patience sometimes to stop and do the tutorials. Steve says, without a gameplay preview, I find it hard to be exciting. So the way I see it is, I will play the game. Let's say I play it quite often, and I play the game once a week or once every 2 weeks. I will still spend more time with it as a hobby. I'll still spend more time building models. I'll spend more time painting models. I'll spend more time learning the rules. I'll spend more time kind of absorbing myself in the Star Wars universe. So for me, even if the game is, like, I'm not going to play like a rubbish game, let's be honest, but I'm going to get enjoyment from the hobby aspect of buying this box set. So for me, the fact that I love the miniatures and I want to build them and I want to paint them, like, is already giving me value for money. The fact that it's a good game, or potentially a good game at the end of it, is even better. Robin saying, if you know you're going to play it due to popularity or love of all things Star Wars, pre-order now, you won't be sad. Yeah. Coffee saying, I love the way they've gone with the comic animation style. Yeah, I agree as well, yeah. The dog ate my meeple. Says, I get what you're saying, especially with the difference between this and a Kickstarter. You know you're getting it and it's super easy to cancel, so there's no risk. That's kind of my point. Like, there's a lot of people seem to be getting really frustrated about pre-orders and not pre-ordering before they've seen the gameplay. And I completely understand that. Like, nobody is being forced to do this. Nobody's being forced to pre-order. And if you want to wait until you've seen some gameplay and find out more about it, that's absolutely fine too. If you decide you don't want to spend any money on it until you can walk into your shop and pick it off the shelf, that's absolutely fine too. But for those people that do want to pre-order it, like, they shouldn't feel like pariahs. Like, they shouldn't be like, yeah, like, never pre-order. You shouldn't pre-order. Pre-order's evil kind of thing. At the end of the day, like, pre-ordering is just, it's like putting a deposit down. It's like saying, like, you know, can you reserve me one, please? And I'm showing my faith in, like, sort of, I'm showing my faith of you as a store to say, there's my money for it. Will you please hold one for me? That's all a pre-order is, really. It's like, I find Kickstarter way more unscrupulous than a pre-order system. Let's have a little look. 10 sketches. I'm going to Star Wars Celebration. They're demoing Shatterpoint there, and I'm going to use the chance to try it and also beg AMG not to put their Stepson Legion in the cupboard. I'm not sure they are demoing it, mate. I saw on one of the streams that I was watching when I was doing a bit of research today, where they said they were going to be at Star Wars Celebrations, but the first demos would be at Adepticon. So I'm not sure if they're demoing it or not. They might be. Maybe things have changed. Jess says, it's good seeing so many great looking games. There's heaps of awesome choices. We're really spoiled for choice. What a bunch of lucky nerds. I agree, mate. There's something for everyone. We've just been talking on earlier. I'm not a massive fan of Lord of the Rings, but I'm really happy that folks who like Lord of the Rings or love Lord of the Rings or seeing some new stuff coming for it, and the game's getting a bit more love now. It's the same with 40k. It's not the game that I play, but I'm really happy that people who love it are well served by Games Workshop, giving them exactly the kind of things that they want. Like I just find life's too short to be negative about stuff that I'm not really interested in. That shouldn't be like it shouldn't be like a weird thing to say, but it almost sounds weird saying it. Like if there's something I'm just not into, like I haven't got any energy in my body to be negative about it. Like I've made my decision. It's not my kind of thing, but I'm sure other people love it. Like, so I'll leave that for them to love, kind of thing. I find it strange being negative about something when you're not interested. I understand being passionate about something and it's something that you love but you don't like the way it's going. It's like supporting your football team and they're not playing very well, kind of thing. I understand having an opinion and like being passionate about something that you absolutely love, but it's not what you want, kind of thing. I get that. I think it's different when people are like kind of like they've already made their mind up, they're not going to buy it. They think it's too expensive, it's not for them, they don't really want it, they've got no intention of playing it, they've got no intention of ever buying it, but then still feel the need to kind of rain on people's parade a little bit. I find that a weird thing. Clyde saying probably just plays like MCP with Star Wars. Not from what they've said, mate. They've said it's very, very different. It's different kind of mechanics, it's different rules, different ways to play. Even the victory points is a different way to kind of calculate who wins and who loses. So it's not just a reskin, if you like. Let's have a little look here. Yeah, Coffee and Pistachio saying it comes with all the parts needed to make a pretty cool diorama too. It does actually come with like some nice little backgrounds to use to take photographs. There's instructions in the box to show you how to use the lid of the box as like a little photo box type thing, and you put these backgrounds in so you can take some pictures of your minis, and it works inside the box, which I thought was really cool. Sora Kiss says, I mean, everything that has to be manufactured after you purchase is technically a pre-order, like cacti being desert pickles. Yeah. I mean, there's two sides of it where you go to a shop and you buy something, which is being produced, but then like the shop has done the pre-order for you, basically, in that respect. Like if you go into a game store and buy a game off the shelf, the store has essentially done the pre-order in the hope that somebody buys it. So you can look at this many different ways. TC Brain Drain says, I'm a huge Star Wars fan and I like the look of these minis, but I almost hate to say this, it's just not doing it for me, so I plan on passing and instead focus on Legion. 100% mate, focus on the stuff that you enjoy, focus on the stuff you love. John Estel, good evening mate, he said, I'm definitely intrigued, I might see if it gets traction locally and maybe jump in then. Yeah, I think that's the other side as well. There's always going to be folks that want to wait and see who plays it, kind of thing. Yeah, that's another reason to wait. Coffee and Pistachio says the main kill team starter set is £65 on GW website. Warcry is 110. I think the starter set that's £65 isn't the full starter set. I think it's the cheaper version of the starter set, if you like. So like when things like Into the Dark came out, whatever the new one is, they're always about 110, 120, 130 pounds. Those are the ones I was talking about, where you get the rule book, you get all the terrain, you get 2 full squads, that kind of stuff. I think the one that's £65, you don't get the terrain, or you don't get all of the terrain in. RG says, for 2-player starter sets, a lot of weight is contained in the rule set, so shipping a lot of useless paper is expensive. For model sets with cards in different languages, having a single SKU makes logistics easy. Yeah, exactly, mate. Yeah, exactly. Just saying, to be fair, the Shatterpoint game looks like you could have 4 people on that table, which is cool. I have enough games to be going on with. I'm not sure whether I think it's designed for 2, but I'm sure there'd be ways that you could do it, mate. No doubt. Quantum Reveries says, haven't we been here before with Fantasy Flight games with Imperial Assault and the announcement of Legion? What, you mean that they made a different Star Wars game? Because that's all it was. Imperial Assault was essentially Descent with Star Wars skin on it, and then they made Legion, which was a mass battle game. And the reason that they have these, not necessarily different scales, but the reason why they produce them as different products is because they sell differently. So, like, you can't necessarily build armies out of board game minis because it's not economical to be able to, like, sell them in that way. And in the same way, you, like, the minis from Legion don't sell in the same way that Shatterpoint's being designed. So what they do is, rather than just reproduce them in different boxes, which is expensive in itself, they resculpt them, they do it at a different scale, and they sell them as a different game. Like, at the end of the day, you don't have to buy it. Like, we have to think about these things. If it wasn't for these games making money, these games wouldn't exist. Like, no company goes into a project and says, right, we're going to make this game. We're not really worried about it being profitable. We're not really worried about it covering its own costs. So what we'll do is we'll put loads of work into this game, but we'll just tell people that they can just use whatever they want, kind of thing. Like, there are companies do that, but those companies generally, like, one guy working on his own or one girl working on her own. Like, they're not like big companies. So that's just the way of the world. Scott Latham says, I want that Bad Batch if they release them. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if they come at some point, mate. Lord Novus says, I hope the miniatures are easy to build. MCP box set was very challenging for me. My minis did look funny on table and were great for laughs, but at the time the bum end result was not so clean. I think the Legion mini, the Marvel Crisis Protocol minis, I personally didn't have big problems with them, but I know a lot of people did. And I think they were the first sculpts. It was the first sculpts and the first production that AMG had ever done. And I think if you look at the newer Marvel Crisis Protocol minis versus the original ones, there's an increase in quality. And I think that where Star Wars Shatterpoint will be is they'll have learned from that whole process. They're at a different stage as a company, as a developer, as a manufacturer. They're at a different stage now, so I can't imagine that they're going to be kind of sort of difficult, shall we say, to build. Let's have a little look down here. Ariel says, Atomic Mass games shouldn't be constrained from making a new game because they inherited Legion. It's a really good point, and it's also the point that they were working on Shatterpoint long before they inherited Legion. So I don't think they knew that Legion was going to come their way and they were going to have to look after it. They assumed that Fantasy Flight Games would continue with Legion and X-Wing, and because they were part of the parent company, they obviously still had the license. So I think they decided, because of Marvel Crisis Protocol's success, they were going to make a Star Wars version of a Star Wars skirmish game, if you like. So they've been working on this for a number of years, long before, like, Legion came along and got dropped onto their laps. Let's have a little look. Morning, VG. How are you doing, mate? Nice to see you in. Let's have a little look. Where are we up to here? Let's have a Matthew saying, hey all, keeping an eye on this one. Not sure if I'll jump in and always have tons of projects, but I'm glad to see some hype for a non-GW product. There is that, mate, isn't there? VG saying the Shatterpoint sculpt poses are so similar to Clone Wars in Pandemic sculpts. You could sub them really easy. Scale isn't that different, and if it bugs you, just scale everything. Yeah, I'm sure at some point you'll be able to kind of go online and find cards and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, use what you want at the end of the day. Like, you know, just buy what makes you happy. Don't worry if it doesn't. Ed saying AMG have shown Legion minis on the Shatterpoint terrain and they look good in it. I don't think Legion minis are actually that much smaller. I think we're literally talking millimeters. What makes them instantly look really different is the fact that Legion minis are on kind of small, fat bases, and Shatterpoint minis are on the wider, thinner bases, the same as Marvel Crisis Protocol. And I think it's the basis throws your eyes out. They're not massively different in scale. They're a different style, I would suggest, but scale-wise, they're not massively off. Yeah, Camo saying I pre-ordered pizza at the weekend. Exactly, mate. Yeah, Random Tasker saying bases are the real issue with skill. VG saying he caved in last night and backed Marvel United Multiverse. I really want to play Matt and the promo characters. How dare you back a Kickstarter, mate? Do you not know you're not allowed to do pre-orders? Lord Nova says a lack of information makes me more excited. I just dream about how good I think the game will be. It's interesting you say that, mate, because I think it's part of a marketing ploy, really. I mean, they're not intentionally, well, they kind of are, but they're not sitting back like saying, we know all this stuff and we're not telling anyone, we're refusing to tell anyone. What they're doing is they are gradually keeping the wheels turning of the hype machine. I remember when Legion come out and Fantasy Flight Games like were talking about it, they basically kind of spewed all of the information out right at the start when it was announced, and we got gameplay videos and we got like sort of loads of information, what was in the core box, everything else, and then we pretty much got nothing for about 5 months. There was this weird like feeling of like, well, what do we talk about now? Like, and it was almost like the hype train kind of fell off the end of a cliff because there was nothing to talk about. And I think what AMG are doing, and like it or loathe it kind of thing, they're drip feeding information every couple of months. Like, so it was announced in November. We found out what was in the core box in January, or might have been December time. We found out the prices in January. It's gone up for pre-order. We've just had some information drip feeding a little bit about sort of the design process of it and what they've kind of been doing in the background. We're going to start to find out that they'll do like another transmission in March, probably at the early part of the month, ready for Adepticon coming at the back end of the month, when we'll then start to see videos of gameplay and demos and people reviewing it and that kind of stuff. Like, there'll be this gradual wave of information coming through until June when it releases. So like, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. Not knowing everything about it is actually quite refreshing for a change, because it's very rare that actually that happens. And you might not like it because we all want to know everything yesterday kind of thing. But it's like having a trailer for a movie kind of thing. Like, we watch the trailer for it, it's enough to tell us it's something that we're interested in, and then we wait to see the movie. We don't want to know the story kind of thing. Like, oh, like I need to know what this film's about, because like if like I might not like it kind of thing when I go and see it. Like, it's nice to have some anticipation. It's nice to have a gentle build up to things. It's nice to have a drip feed of stuff for a change. Kaleo says, thanks for an hour of distraction. Back to the soggy basement. I hope everything's okay, buddy, and I hope it's not. I hope the damage is not too bad. Yeah, Jess says the imaginary potential of a game is always better than the game. 100%. Lee Russ, good evening, mate. How you doing? He said, I think they just said its debut at Adepticon, but that's before Celebration. Ah, right. There was something they'd said about that they were attending Celebration, and you could ask them about the game and stuff, but they didn't mention demos. That's what I was remembering, but I could be wrong. Skullduggery, good evening, mate. How you doing? Robin Mankiller says, after it comes out, you're going to have a bunch of grumpy nerds complaining it's not more like Marvel. You can't win. Play what you like for the love of the hobby. 100%. Sarah said, I did not expect you to read that out, but glad my point got across. Yeah. Oh, no, that's fine. Yeah, awesome. It comes with the backgrounds and the photo tips. Yeah, absolutely. The Kill Team starter set is about half what the big core box. Yeah, that's what I thought, mate. Yeah, like that's what I mean. It's roughly about the same price. It's was it like £125 for the Kill Team core box? I think it was, which had all of the terrain and stuff in as well. Because of Ben saying Star Wars Assault was a board game, Imperial Assault. Yeah, it was. That's the other side of it as well. It was a board game. VG is saying it's much more up his alley than either Legion or Shatterpoint, but different strokes. Yeah, absolutely, mate. Matthew says Fantasy Flight Games stopped supporting Star Wars Assault after Legion came out. I doubt AMG will do that. I think it's different, mate. I mean, at the end of the day, they'll support these games for as long as they're profitable, for as long as people are buying them, for as long as people are playing them, kind of thing. Like, games tend to get discontinued or companies stop supporting them when people stop buying the stuff. Like, at the end of the day, if it makes money, why would you not continue to support and sell it? Spider says, I do wonder if they're thinking of doing a fully supported Imperial Assault 2, but Fantasy Flight Games seem to be leaning away from board games right now. Yeah, Fantasy Flight seem to be into their card games and stuff like that. Cheese Me says, Shatterpoint feels like a more complete game out of the box. More complete than what, mate? Because to me, like, Marvel Crisis Protocol was a very much complete out-of-the-box experience. You got terrain, you got miniatures, you got dice, you got your movement stuff, you got your core rules, the full rules were online, you got all the cards you needed, you got all the mission cards. Like, for me, like, if you're somebody that doesn't really want to collect stuff, you could buy the core box for Marvel Crisis Protocol and never really buy anything else if that's what you were into. I would say that probably the Kill Team boxes are very similar in that respect. Like you could actually just play with what was in those boxes. The Warcry boxes very much the same. Chaffhunter says, how is this different from Legion? It's completely different, mate. It plays on a different size board. It plays with different amounts of miniatures. It's got completely different rules. It's not squad based in terms of, like, it's not an army scale game. It's individual heroes with the individual character cards. It's just a completely different kind of game. It's like saying, in what way does Star Wars differ from Warhammer 40k kind of thing? Like, they're just different games. Vijay says, I think Imperial Assault wrapped up as they sort of ran out of settings and stories to tell. Although now with all the new shows and movies, there's more scope. I think that's a fair point, mate. I think they'd kind of rounded out the story arc of what they were doing. I'd be keen for that as long as I can still use my first edition stuff. Yeah, that's always a consideration, isn't it? Carrie said, I really enjoyed Imperial Assault and played a lot. I think it had potential even with the app. I think it's a good game, mate, but again, I think it's one of those things where it became difficult to buy the expansions because, let's be honest, Fantasy Flight games are not necessarily known for really good sort of distribution and stock and things like that. It became difficult to buy the expansions. A lot of them were out of stock and weren't getting restocked. And with that, with every expansion that comes out, less and less people kind of buy the expansions. It's like that sort of diminishing returns, isn't it? Like, the core box comes out and let's say 10,000 people buy it, and like of them 10,000, maybe 5,000 like hardly get it to the table. They haven't really played that much. Maybe some of them didn't enjoy it, and so then there's 5,000 people actively playing it. So the next expansion comes out and maybe 3,000 or 4,000 of them buy the expansion, and then the next expansion comes out and maybe 2,000 of those that kind of bought the first expansion buy the second one. It's just that, like, kind of law of diminishing returns, and eventually over a period of time, especially when it's board gamers rather than miniature gamers, they just kind of fade into a point where actually it's not worth the expense to do another expansion kind of thing. Random Task says, you mean Asmodee? Asmodee, Fantasy Flight Games, mate, it's all the same thing. Fantasy Flight is part of Asmodee. VG says, speaking of which, I might pick up a couple this weekend. Fabian says, license fee from Disney's are really not cheap. For me, the price is right. I mean, there is that to take into account. I'm assuming that, like, there's always a bit of a premium built into it, I suppose, to cover license fees. Lord of the Rings, like, obviously had a license fee as well for GW. There's that famous story about sort of 3% of the profits were going to New Line Cinema, so the models were 3% smaller, kind of thing, to offset the cost, or to offset the cost and things. So it's interesting, really. Chaffer says, I have a lot of the old Fantasy Flight Games Rogue Trader RPG book. Yeah, I'm not really an old gamer. I might be old and I might be a gamer, but I haven't really been playing games from like back in the day and stuff. So a lot of the older stuff goes right over my head. Yeah, when it comes to the licenses and stuff, I mean, there's plenty of games like sort of are licensed. Things like what's it called, Fallout Wasteland Warfare, Mantic's Walking Dead, when that was around. You know, like there's plenty of stuff that's based on licenses. The Hellboy game, obviously we've got Star Wars Legion, Star Wars X-Wing, got Marvel Crisis Protocol, you got the Night Models Batman game, you got the Night Models Harry Potter game. Like, all of these things have a license fee attached to them as well, and whilst it might still be cheaper than sort of doing it from scratch and coming up with your own universe, it also, like, there's a lot of marketing attached to the fact that you have a known license, and so it kind of works both ways. But yeah, it does have to be paid for. Chaff Hunter says, I always look for board games and miniatures can be used in multiple ways, like in an RPG or just the game they're made for. And I know a lot of people say that. I must admit, I never do. I never look at them from that respect. I kind of like to look at like games or game systems as self-contained things, really, and like it's all part of my hobby. Like that stuff there is for that game, and I play with that, and I play something else and I paint something else because it's a nice distraction. It's a nice change of pace from my hobby, kind of thing. So I never really worry about sort of using this in that or that in this kind of thing. I know a lot of people do, but it's just never really a consideration for me. VG says, getting reverse cycle aircon installed in the new house today, so the wife might have something to say about dropping a couple of hundred on Imperial Assault expansions. Lucky she's not the boss of me. Reverse cycle aircon. I tell you what, mate, what it must be like to live in a place where you need aircon. Chavon says, I hope these miniatures will be good for Star Wars RPGs. I think it depends on whether the Star Wars RPGs have these characters in, or if you're just happy to use these as characters you've created, mate. Anyway, folks, I think we might as well start to wrap it up there. We're coming up towards 11 o'clock. My throat is dry as sticks. I feel it feels like dusty in my throat. Do you know what it is? I was changing some light fittings in the living room today, and obviously there's bits of crap fell out the ceiling, and I really feel like my throat's like proper dusty and dry. Heating and cooling in one unit, like you need heating. You need way more tea. I need way more coffee, mate, but I don't drink coffee late at night. So I'm drinking, this was hot black currant juice, but then I started talking, I forgot I had a drink, and I just kept going, didn't I? Oh, be kind and drop a like, says Super Pumpkin Man. How we doing for likes tonight? 62 likes. I'm sure we could have squeezed out a few more there. If anybody hasn't, give a thumbs up to the video. It would be very much appreciated. If you haven't subscribed, I would love it if you subscribe to the channel. Always nice to get some new subscribers and some new faces. VG says it gets down to single digits above 0 here in winter. Yeah, like 9. Or do you still class 10 as a single digit? Clyde saying another good video. Thank you very much, mate. And Jezza saying cheers, Andy, and cheers, folks. So, folks, I will see you all next week in the live stream. I've got no idea, if I'm perfectly honest, what's happening this week, because I have an absolute mountain of editing to do from a Battle Systems video that I recorded about 6 months ago, but I didn't edit it until I knew that the Kickstarter was going live. So I've got to edit that this week. I've still got the Hobby Room Tour video to finish recording as well and do that. I'm also setting up an interview as well with another games company, just trying to pin down a date for that one. So lots of things happening in the background. But if I don't see you before that, I will see you all next Monday. I'll no doubt chat to the Patreons in the Patreon chat. So take care, everyone. I'll see you next week.